All right, today we're cracking open an ancient letter. But this is way more than just old mail. It's basically a strategic blueprint. We're going to dive right into the Book of Titus and see how it lays out a plan for building a solid, thriving community, literally from the ground up.
So, just imagine for a second, what if someone gave you that exact job? How would you build a healthy community from scratch? Especially in a place that's known for being, well, a total mess? That's the huge challenge right at the heart of the Book of Titus.
Okay, so here's the setup. You've got the Apostle Paul. He's the mentor. And he leaves his trusted partner, a guy named Titus, on the island of Crete. And according to chapter 1, verse 5, Titus has a huge mission to set in order what remains and appoint elders in every town. Basically, his job is to bring order to chaos. And believe me, this was no walk in the park. The local reputation was, let's just say, challenging. The letter itself, right there in chapter 1, verse 12, actually quotes one of Crete's own prophets. And what he said was, "The Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies." Wow. So you can see Titus isn't just building something new, he's building it in a really tough environment. The stakes are incredibly high. So, how does this blueprint actually work? Well, we're going to walk through 5 key stages. We've just talked about the mission in Crete. Next up, we'll look at the blueprint for leadership. Then we'll see how that expands to create a whole culture of character. After that, we'll get into the real motivation, what the text calls the grace that teaches, and finally, how it all leads to a community that's designed for good works.
All right, first things first. The blueprint starts right at the top with leadership. Paul's number 1 instruction for Titus is to appoint elders in every single city. This is the foundation that everything else is going to be built on.
And what's the number 1 absolutely non-negotiable requirement for these leaders? Titus chapter 1, verse 7 is super clear about it. A leader or a bishop must be blameless. And that's not a suggestion, you guys. That is the absolute starting point for everything else. So what does blameless actually look like in practice? Well, the blueprint gives us a super detailed character profile. You see the must-be list? It's all about stability and generosity. Things like being hospitable and temperate. But just as important is that must-not-be list. It warns against being arrogant, quick to anger, or greedy. It's really about who a leader is, both inside and out. And look, this isn't just about being a nice person. There's a really practical purpose here. Verse 9 explains that this kind of character is what's needed to both teach sound doctrine, that's the community's core beliefs, and also to challenge anyone who opposes it. So a leader's job is twofold: build up the community and protect it. Okay, so now the blueprint starts to zoom out. It doesn't just stop with the leaders. The real goal is to build an entire culture of character. And this next phase kicks off in chapter 2, verse 1, with a pretty simple instruction for Titus: teach what is appropriate to sound doctrine. And these instructions get broken down for different groups. For the older men, the focus is all about stability and maturity. They're told to be sober, grave, and temperate. But it goes deeper than just behavior. They're supposed to be sound, or you could say healthy, in their faith, in their charity or love, and in their patience. Now, for the older women, the call is similar, but it comes with a really distinct responsibility. Their behavior should reflect holiness, and they're warned specifically not to be false accusers or given to much wine. But here's the key thing. They are called to be teachers of good things. They have this active, mentoring role to play in the community.
And what are they supposed to be teaching? Well, as you can see here, the younger women are to be taught self-control, to love their families, and to manage their homes well. And the reason for this, which is stated right there in verse 5, is so important, so that no one will malign the word of God. This draws a direct line between what happens in private and the community's public reputation.
And what about the young men? Well, it's surprisingly short and to the point. The instruction in verse 6 is simply to exhort them or urge them to be sober-minded. That's it. It's a really powerful and direct call for self-control and clear thinking. And this brings us full circle, right back to Titus himself. See, he isn't just supposed to stand on the sidelines telling people what to do. He gets instructed directly in verse 7, in all things showing thyself a pattern of good works. He has to be the living, breathing example of the very culture he is trying to build. He has to lead from the front. Okay, so we have the what, right? Appoint good leaders, build a culture of character. But why? What's the real motivation for all of this? This is where the blueprint reveals its power source, what it calls the grace that teaches. And this, right here, is the theological heart of the entire letter. Titus chapter 2, verse 11 says that this whole project is even possible because the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men. So this isn't just a list of rules to follow. It's presented as a direct response to a massive divine event.
And what this shows us is that grace isn't some passive concept. It's an active teacher. According to verse 12, grace actually teaches us what to deny, things like ungodliness and worldly desires, and then it teaches us what to do, to live with self-control, to live righteously, and to live godly, right here and now in this present world.
And the ultimate goal of all this grace is transformation. Verse 14 says the aim is to create a peculiar people, which just means a people set apart for a purpose, who are zealous for good works. That connection is so crucial. Grace is meant to produce this passionate, driving desire to do good.
And that brings us to the final piece of the blueprint. If the whole community is powered by grace, what's the tangible result? What does it actually produce? The text argues that it's designed specifically for good works.
And this isn't just about how people behave inside the community. Chapter 3 gives really clear instructions for public life. Obey the governing authorities, be ready for any good work, don't slander anyone, be peaceable, and show genuine humility to all people. It's really about being a positive force in the wider society. The blueprint really frames this as a dramatic before and after story. On the left, you see who they were, according to verse 3. Foolish, disobedient, even hateful. But then look at the right, who they are now. Saved by mercy, washed and renewed and justified by grace. It's a complete identity shift.
And then the main point is just hammered home one last time. Verse 8 calls this a trustworthy saying that needs to be repeated over and over. Those who have trusted in God may be careful to devote themselves to doing what is good. It's clear. Belief and action are presented as being completely inseparable.
And there you have it. The blueprint is complete. It shows this clear progression. Right leadership plus sound doctrine, all powered by grace, results in one specific thing, a community that is defined by its good works. So the Book of Titus lays out this incredible plan where a core belief system is meant to fundamentally shape how an entire community behaves. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. In our world today, what is that connection between what we believe and how we actually act? What does that really look like?